Good evening, my name is Grant Hatcher. Today is May 4th, 2026. This is for FTT 210, the Muzzleloader Lab Week 8 final project. So this is basically going to be a compilation of everything we've done up to this point, up until week 7. This is 3 parts. So all of this is going to include, number 1, inlet the lock, remove casting marks from brass, inlet the butt plate and toe plate, inlet the trigger assembly, install thimble, barrel tenons, front thimble, trigger assembly, trigger guard, shape stock, install nose cap, shape forend of stock, and sand stock to 180 grit paper. Part 2 is going to be narrating the procedure. Start with unpacking the materials, ending with a function check. I'm going to also summarize at least one step I found challenging or informative. Part 3, I'm going to evaluate my experience, which includes what procedures I would practice that I would be able to apply to modern firearms, and also identify and describe at least one procedure I would like to apply further to customize or improve upon my muzzleloader. First thing we have is our stock. We have our Traditions Shenandoah 50 caliber 33.5 inch barrel. And we have our lock. We have our trigger assembly. We have our lock plate washers, lock plate screws, our tang screw, our nipple, trigger guard screws, trigger guard, our rear sight, our front sight, bolster screw, ramrod retaining spring, our barrel tenons, ramrod thimble screws, front thimble, nose cap, barrel tenon pins, rear thimble, butt plate screws, toe plate screws, and we also have these screws as well, ramrod. So that's everything for the rifle itself. And we also have our Muzzleloader Lab booklet, our rifle manual, our packing list. And included in that packing list is 3 chisels. We have 5/16 bent gouge, 9/64 straight gouge, and 3/8 bent chisel. Bore light and our Prussian blue. Alright, so the first thing you're going to want to do is you're just going to take your lock, fit it in there, just give it a quick test fit. Fits pretty good so far, so I don't think we'll have to do too much. Okay, we're going to take cotton swab and some Prussian blue, aka your inletting compound. You're just going to mark all the high points. As you can see, it's showing all the high spots. We're going to take our chisel, start chiseling away. Alright, so we've already got a block of wood installed on the vise, got a pilot hole. So we're going to be cleaning up this whole back area here and this side as well. You can see the casting from the manufacturer. We're going to get that off. Alright, so we've got this pretty much finished up. We're going to go back over everything with some 220 grit sandpaper just to get those file marks off. Alright, so it looks pretty good. Positioning. Alright, so first thing I'm doing is kind of just centering this. I'm just going to trace around it. And then we are going to start inletting. So apply our compound. Try to line it up with those pencil lines I put in earlier. And we're gonna give it a tap right at the top here, the soft side. Oh. Alright, so this is the progress I've made so far on inletting the butt plate. I just did some compound, as you can see. I believe I went a little too deep right here, so we're just fanning the back end off a little bit. Got a little more to cut off on the corners here. But yeah, we're gonna keep going. That's what it looks like. So it's progress. The main issue I'm having is right here and right on the edge here. I've got my universal grease. Alright, so we've got our toe plate in order for this to match up. we've got this toe plate inletted. We're just matching it up now. We're gonna mark a spot for our pilot holes. About as good as we can get it. Alright. But now we're going to go ahead and clean up our trigger guard. You can see some of the manufacturing casting. So we're just going to get that cleaned up. Alright, we're just going to hit it with some 120. Just get her cleaned up. So yeah, we have our ramrod tensioner. So this is going to be the orientation, like so. So this little curve is going to be facing down, and the screw is going to go in through this hole right here. So I'm going to place the screw in, and we're going to insert the tensioner, put the screw all the way through, and we're going to tighten this back up. Okay. Alright, so it's going to be loose in there. It's just going to be loose for now. Once the barrel is set in, it'll keep tension up above. When you insert your ramrod, it's held in place a little bit tighter so it doesn't come flying out. So obviously, like I said before, it's loose right now, but once the barrel's on top, it'll help keep tension, hence the name ramrod tensioner. Now the instructions specifically say do not inlet this, because this has been machined specifically from the manufacturer. So, and we're not really just cleaning this up. I mean, as you can tell, there are a couple casting marks that we could clean up, but we're going to file this anyway to fit in here. Instead of shaping the wood to fit, we're going to shape the brass to fit. So you can see it's a little tight, so it shouldn't take much to get this to fit in there. It fits pretty good as is, so shouldn't need too much. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So it looks like it fits pretty good. I'm just going to finish off sides here with a little bit of sandpaper, and then we'll start drilling the hole. Next thing we're going to do, we're just going to clamp the thimble onto the stock. Alright, so the length from these etchings here is about 34 millimeters. So we're just going to mark that with our pencil. And half of 34 is going to be 17. Okay.
it in there. This whole thing across here. From the flat side. It's about 9.7. Okay. Just gonna mark that right there. Alright, so we've got our clamp, got our thimble, we have our center, we have our bit, and we're gonna start drilling. Gonna adjust this clamp a little bit. I'm going very slow because I don't want to punch all the way through to the other end. Okay, so we hit the brass. Alright, so fortunately for me, I was looking underneath here, over on this side. I was looking down to make sure I didn't go all the way through. It punched, once I started applying pressure, it punched through pretty quick. And if I had kept going, I would have gone through to the other side. So take this step nice and easy. Alright, we're going to remove our clamp. Remove our thimble. There we go, nice and clean. We're going to take our tap and start twisting. Take one of our screws, test the fit, and that's perfect. We're gonna insert our thimble again. We're gonna test fit to see how far we're gonna need to countersink and or cut off the end of the screw. But it is barely poking out. Alright, now we're going to countersink. It's almost there, just a little bit further. We're going to countersink a little bit more, and then we will file it. Going to use our spherical file here to get this job done. Alright, so we got the inside of this file down, and it's kind of hard to tell, but like right here, it's almost like there's pits in there from the casting. Like a little bit of it was raised, but there's like a pit. You can see where some of the wood caught. So we're going to reinstall this and test it again. Alright, so unfortunately now the screw is sticking out slightly, so we are going to file this down real quick. In a perfect world, I would have something thin to put this through, so I could evenly file this down. Unfortunately, I don't have any metal or wood like that, and I can't afford to buy anything right now. So we're just going to give this our best effort. Alright, so we countersunk it a little bit more, and we've got the thimble in there. We're going to go ahead and install this one more time. We just got the thimble reinstalled. We're going to test our ramrod here. Cool. Alright, so when it comes to this second thimble, the lab explains it's kind of shooter's preference. It's where you want it to be or where you think it would look nice. So my thought process is I want this as high up as I can get it to keep the rod, stable, because you have kind of the midsection here stabilized and then the rear, obviously. So I'm thinking I want as high as I can without preventing my grip. So I'm thinking if I have it down next to me, I'm either going to grab it like this or like this. So that's about a hand's length distance from the end here. So actually I might move it up just a little bit, because this rod is all the way back right now as it sits. So if I were to grab it, let's see, move it up a little bit more. So that's about a hand length right there. Alright, so I got the second thimble installed. Unfortunately, I had to go much deeper than I was hoping for, and I had to file that screw quite a bit. Make sure that you're going completely in the center. When I initially drilled it, it was centered, but when I ran the screw through, it was cocked a little bit, so it ran into the wall. So it made it really hard. It took me over an hour to get that second thimble in, but she's in now. Alright, so the next step is going to be to insert the tenons into the barrel. However, I noticed that everything sits real flush. Until about here. So you can see that does not want to sit down. So we're going to have to inlet back here a little bit. The next step is going to be getting these tenons to fit into these machine slots in the barrel, like so. So definitely a little too wide right now, so we're just going to slowly file and sand them until we get them to where we want. Alright, so we got our first one in, and I'm going to show you getting the second one in. This is just about ready to be fully set in. So we're going to make sure we get the center. Take caliper and a Sharpie. I'm going to measure this distance. Be 10 millimeters, 10.07. So we're going to half that. Find the middle of our tenon. It's about 2.6, so 1.3. There's the middle. And this is a long process if you're being extra careful. Due to my mistakes previously, I'm trying to be as careful as I can. So it took me, sadly to say, a couple hours to get the first one in. So one thing I did do is I measured the initial width. So that puts us at about 9.9, and the inner width is about 7.4. And then the very center is about 7. So I'll just compare that to this. So right now this is at about 8.3. It's an 8.39. Yeah. And there is one end that tends to be smaller, so the lab says to mark it with a small dot. So that's going to be our entrance. And then once you can get about a third in with light taps, I'd say that's about a third, maybe more. That's all you need. You don't want to make this the same exact size as this, because then there's going to be no tension for this to stay. And this is what's holding your barrel into the stock. So I'm just going to rotate it to about a 45. Just going to hammer until we get the center of the tenon to the center of the barrel. You also want to make sure that you are filing the underside, because the problem I had with this one is that I didn't file the underside and it started to catch on the top of the barrel, and you don't want to mess that up. So also make sure you're not hammering directly on the tenon. You want to hammer on the underside. And we've got our lines matched up. So that one is good to go. Now we're going to move on to our pins. Alright, so now that we're onto the pins, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a little pencil line right through here. Alright. I'm going to lift this up. Put it on its side. I'm just going to draw a little pencil line. So we know exactly where our tenons are. We're going to take this. We're just going to measure from the top of the edge here to about the middle, 20 millimeters. Same thing here. Flip it back over. may not be able to see it, but our line is right here. And we got our other one over here. So now we're going to take that measurement again. And that should be our tenon right here. Same thing over here. Now that we have our center, we're just going to punch a little imprint. Next thing we're going to do, we're just going to wrap some tape around it to ensure it stays taut. Alright, so we have two bits here. This one is slightly larger, this one is slightly smaller than the pin. We're going to start off with the smaller one, and then we're going to verify our tenons. And we started hitting the tenon. Looks like we're dead on, so that's good. But it was, so the coating of this is black, and I forgot that it's actually chrome. So I saw the chrome shavings and I was scared I hit the barrel. So we're gonna keep going here. And there's our second hole. So the second one was a little bit low. First one was just about perfect. So they're still too small to put the pin through for the tenon, but we can punch them through the wood and it will compress, so it'll be a tighter fit. Alright, now we can insert our pins. Just first thing we're going to do is we're going to test fit this. It may look like it fits, but it's actually a little high back here. So if you put this end in first, you can see right there that it's sitting up. So you can either inlet the front or inlet the back, or both. The book recommends to inlet the back here and then inlet a little bit at the bottom. But obviously we're going to cover this in our inletting compound to see where the high spots are. Okay. So good. Yeah. Try this one more time. Okay. Okay, good. So one more time. Half cock, full cock, prep, and pull. So now we're going to move on to the trigger guard. Alright, so as you can see, it's sticking out quite a bit here. The book specifically says to not bend the brass in. So, it says you can work the brass and inlet as well. So, we've already done cleanup on this, so I'm not going to do that anymore. It has a pretty good fit at the front here. So, I am just going to inlet this rear area here. First thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to mark this with a pencil. Just to see where we're at. Yeah, that's fitting pretty good. So we're actually gonna take a hole punch. Just gonna mark that. Drill our pilot hole. Alright, so that is our trigger guard and our trigger assembly. We're going to get this file down to meet up with this toe plate. Alright, so that looks about snuff to me. So we're going to go ahead and move on. See all this excess wood here at the top and on the sides? We got to get all of that shaped into the butt plate here. Is essentially what we're doing. Now, I know they don't recommend using power tools. However, I feel pretty confident with a sander, electric sander. I do wood projects in my free time, so we're going to go ahead and hit this with an electric sander, and then we'll finish off with some regular sandpaper. So we got the top end of the butt plate shaped into the top of the wood shaped into the butt plate. It's looking pretty good. So now we're gonna flip this over. And we're gonna start on the toe plate. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to find the center of this nose cap so we can drill our pilot holes. So I'm just going to find the center here.
That's about
8.5-ish. So we're going to do 4.25. Alright, Sharpie. Find our center. Straight edge. Now we're going to find the length. 41. Half of 20 is 10. Okay. Alright, next thing we're gonna do, we're just gonna tap these centers and we're just gonna drill our pilot holes. Same thing over here. Okay. Oh. It's about perfect. The other one. And then countersink. Oh yeah, that's good. Okay. So now we're going to try to match that. And that is good. All right. So we've already removed the ramrod. We're just going to match this up. All we're going to do now is just drill some pilot holes. I want to make sure that we do them smaller than the screw because it's going into wood, so it'll create its own threading. I'm not going to go too far either. Okay. Just going to take a pencil. And we're going to trace around where this cap ends at. So now we're going to have to sand all this to match up with the nose cap, and then it's going to widen back out. I'm just going to concern because I want to be careful of this gap for the ramrod. I don't want to mess with that. So we're going to take our time with this. So we just got done sanding up the forend, and we went a little bit of everywhere. So on this part, I didn't go too far because I'm concerned about the channel for the ramrod, so I didn't go too far in this area here, but the sides are matched up. And then I didn't want to go too deep on the sides here because I actually like it a little bit thicker. Pause. Now we're just going to go back over it with, I don't have 180, so I'm going to go over it with some 220. All right, so everything's working good. I'm liking the way it looks. I'm liking it so far. Obviously, we got a lot more to do. We still have to sand, do the bluing, do the staining. For me, was the buttstock. Had some gaps. I didn't think it was gonna be that hard. I went a little too far with the chisel, and it made everything really difficult. But what took me the longest, though, was the thimbles and the tenons. That took me a very long time, almost a full day. We're just gonna do a quick functions check, make sure everything's working. Half cock, full cock, prep, pull.
So procedure I would be able to apply to modern firearms. I would say the filing is a big one. I'm actually doing that right now for a customer's firearm, using files. I think that's a big one. I do see the inletting being potentially useful. Obviously, maybe not so much on synthetic stocks. Checkering, which isn't this class, but coming up, I know we talked about checkering. I think checkering is still popular, and it's something I want to do. Going to the next part of part 3 would be I want to checker the firearm when I'm done. I also want to brand it with my company name as well. One step that I found challenging or informative. So I would say challenging was the butt plate, which should have been simple, but I went too far with the chisels and it made it more difficult to shape the stock. But I was still successful, so that's kind of one of the reasons why they harp on not using power tools. It's because it could have been a lot worse and unfixable, you know. Another area was the thimble, the front thimble. I messed up the angle, so it made it way harder for me to get that attached. And then the tenons felt like it took forever, just from having to file bit by bit, recheck, file, check. But it worked out in the end, so pretty happy with the project overall. I would probably do another one of these builds for sure if someone asked me, like a customer or a friend or someone like that. But yeah, it's been an adventure. I look forward to the next part of this class.